Yeah, what is it?
At a scope shop in Vegas. Now it's since gone out of business, but yeah, that scope I bought in Vegas. Yeah, we used to. My wife and I spent the better part of a winter in Las Vegas, but we would drive out to take our fifth wheel and camp on the shores of have a look see out there. That was before I got into astronomy. I was more into fishing at that time. I would sit on the back porch or the back step of our trailer and fish for straight bass.
Yeah, well, we moved here a year and a half ago. I still have my RASC membership, but once again, I had to go and knock on the doors of my neighbors on either side and say if they saw a strange red light glowing in the dark, and the guy with the telescope, I promised it would only point upwards. Because I actually had a run-in the east end of Toronto with some guy who apparently was having marital difficulties, and he seemed to think that he wanted to know what the hell was I doing.
Oh, okay.
I can remember an incident John Goldman and myself and 3 or 4 other club members out in Mississauga to an occultation of forget what star it was on the moon, and the police actually came in because they thought we were doing the naughty looking in people's windows there, but that was we were in a specific spot so we could catch this obligation.
And you have to be careful. What I really wanted to say to this guy was, would you like to see Uranus? But I thought that would not be a good suggestion. So my wife thinks I have a death wish. Uranus, I tell you.
Uranus, not Uranus, yeah.
Yes.
I have a t-shirt with that on it, front and back.
Mike Jefferson, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm fine, how are you?
I couldn't be better fortuity.
It says, want to see a picture of Uranus? I actually had to explain that to one woman at Starfest. She didn't get it right away. I said, say it very carefully and slow push it to get it.
Yeah. Amateur astronomers, you gotta watch out for them.
I know.
Especially in the dark.
Good to see you, Michael.
Right?
They're 24/7.
No, I
love
we just haven't had any luck.
Mike, I caught him out there yesterday.
Yeah.
You what?
I caught Jim on his balcony yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I
Anytime
did.
you drive by, don't be afraid to stop in and say
Oh, no,
hi.
I won't, but I won't speed if you're not there.
Yeah, there you go. Ben Gaylor catches me out there all the time, don't you?
All the time.
Okay.
You're
I don't
walking
know
by
what he's
with
talking
your
about. I think Jim's out there all the time.
He catch up.
He's only saying he's not retired again yet.
dog. I wish. It's been busy around here lately. Lots of renovations, lots of
Hello, Steve.
Just letting everybody know that we are recording at this point in time. And I don't know if we're live streaming yet. We don't usually go live until close to 7:30 this morning. Right, Chris? He's not answering. Okay. He's ignoring me.
Chris, how are you, Chris? Good. Oh, hey, Steve, how are you? Haven't seen you in a long time as well.
Hi, Jim. Tonight, if we can.
Oh, tonight. Very good. Okay.
Did
Just
you,
gotta
did you
come back
come,
someday.
did you come home from Bacchus to do this tonight?
Yeah,
Oh, thank you, Matthew.
you're
And
welcome.
I know John is off to college tomorrow morning.
I am also here tonight to do this meeting. We're hitting the road first thing in the morning.
John, I didn't know you had an ETX.
Well, could I? Last time we had a meeting, I didn't have one.
Oh, I see.
But Matthew, I believe you have an ETX.
Yes, a 90, yes.
And you know that I have long wanted to play with the NTX. I love Maxitoms. I love Maxitoms. And I only got rid of my big Maxitol because it just took so long to cool down. But when a small Maxitol crossed my path and I had the opportunity to scoop it up for a good deal, I couldn't resist. So there it is. Wait, come and see the Mac. There it is.
What size is it?
It's a 125.
Nice.
It's not the blue one. It's the one with the pink picture of the North American Nebula on it. And so Rebecca said, "Oh, it's so pretty." She really likes it because it's pink. It's pretty.
Nothing wrong with pink.
There's nothing wrong with pink. So it throws up deadly sharp views. Although I seem to have a penchant for collecting 5-inch telescopes.
Really?
I really need to find another aperture. But it's so easy to just, grab the thing, carry it outside, plunk it on the table, and I'm getting a really, really nice sharp planetary view of Jupiter in a couple of minutes. That's really, really nice. I'm enjoying. I like that aspect. It's just so easy to grab and take outside for a quick, nice planetary or lunar view. So it found its way to me. Yeah.
I've had the Eon out for last 2 nights. We've got pretty much much rained out the first night. After about 11 o'clock at night, thunderstorms started rolling in, so we packed up in a real hurry. And then last night was clear, and we stayed till started packing up at 20 to 2 this morning. So got to use the 120 Eon and did some astrophotography. Janice was using the 80 refractor. So
Oh, you had some good nights. That's excellent.
and the sky was very nice there. It was really nice. So, and then like,
phenomenal.
yeah,
Ryan was practically, well, it wasn't on the scene, but it was close. We're getting to that time of the year.
yeah, we stayed up till the Pleiades showed up, and then we went to
Yes.
bed.
Yeah, they were there.
I was going to ask Dave or Joan Skelton if their son would be join us tonight. Hang on.
You said it first.
I want to be able to say I missed the last part.
No, it's over. It hasn't started. Just sort of introducing himself.
Hello, Bob.
Turn off at night.
Dave or Joan Skelton?
What's that? Yeah. Not a lot going on. So I haven't turned my camera on yet.
Yeah. So what has it been for you? Have you been? Hey, hang on a sec. Hey, excuse myself a minute. I have to take a call. I'll be right back.
So I too have been getting up very, very early for work when it's well dark out, and have been popping outside to see the beautiful winter sky. And there's beautiful sights in the winter skies, lovely constellations, the winter Milky Way, lots of nice clusters, and of course, the big showpieces like the Orion Nebula and that. And we shy away from them because nobody likes to do observing in the winter and January and February when it's so bitterly cold out. But at 5 o'clock this morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning at this time of year, it's pleasant outside, it's mild, the air is fresh, and the winter sky is on full display. So if you want to get up early enough, you can get all your winter observing in now while the weather is good. And there was one night earlier this week that was one of the darkest, most transparent skies that I've seen from here at my home, which is deep in light polluted Hamilton. And it was one of the nicest views, nicest skies I've seen. It was really lovely.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that was earlier this week. This morning was good, but not that good. It was that other night. Yeah. Hi, Celia.
Hi. I just brought the master his coffee.
Yes, sorry.
So it's 7:29, and I can't help but notice that Adam has not joined us yet.
I just actually was looking for him, and no, he has not joined us yet.
Okay, so what's already...
Hang on. No, that's not him. Okay.
I had my hopes up there, so...
No, that's okay, but we have a couple of minutes. Just to remind everybody that we are recording at this point in time, and we will be going live. Oh, there's Adam, John, and we'll be going live to YouTube very shortly.
Yeah, but I mean, like, this is kind of crazy here. It's great. I put her back a couple times. See she didn't say your parents. You know. I mean, you didn't need to hear. You didn't need to change something. No, no. Most of them have to show.
There's Bernard. How are you, Bernard?
There, works better if I turn that on. I'm terrific. How are
Good.
things
Good to
with
hear.
you?
Not so bad at all.
Hey, Peter.
Hey. Hey, Brett.
I don't think
Awesome. And Joanne. Hi, Joanne. Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jim, it's good to see you too.
Yeah.
Nice telescope in the background there.
Yeah, well, that's two nice ones. One, my own baby, and John's is in the background there too. That's pretty
Nice.
Out of Denver.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, lovely. Sue, I think it's getting close to the time when maybe we can mute the microphones.
You want me to do my spiel?
So, yeah, absolutely, yes.
So, well-
7:30, I think we're good.
Welcome, everybody, to the beginning of our new season, I guess if you want to call it that. So the beginning of our meetings for 2021, 2022. And it's nice to see everybody back and welcome. For those of you who are new, those of you who are returning, I hope that you'll stay with us. So as John's going to get the meeting started, just a reminder that we are recording this and we are streaming live to YouTube. And it is now time to please turn off your video cameras and mute yourself as well. And John, I'll turn it over to you to get the meeting started.
Thank you very much, Sue. I appreciate that. Yes, and thank you for that reminder. If everybody could mute their microphones, and Sue, I think you're going to have to mute a couple.
I will.
Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to the September meeting of the Hamilton Amateur Astronomers. That was Sue McLaughlin, the powerhouse behind all of this. I'm merely the pretty face that you get to look at here. So not quite as nice as Sue. So I know you're saying, what's he even doing on the screen? But here I am. You're stuck looking at me at the moment. I'm John Govro, and I'm the chair of the Hamilton Amateur Astronomers at the moment for another few weeks. And welcome back. It's nice to see everybody back. I hope everybody had a wonderful summer and is enjoying the beautiful pleasantness of the late summer and early fall to come. The HAA hosts, the HAA does these monthly membership meetings from September through June. We take July and August off so that people can enjoy their summer and take a little break from this kind of thing. Although it was very nice to see many people throughout the summer as well. And so, as Sue said, this is the beginning of the new season, and we have some good stuff lined up for the rest of the year. We're going to ease into things tonight with a few of our members talking about a few different things, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Just nice to have everybody back and get reacquainted. And then we have an all-star spectacular guest speaker next month coming up. Tonight, we also have a few door prizes to give away, as we always do. I will remind everybody that while we've been doing our meetings via Zoom rather than in person, the door prizes have been available to pick up here at my house. And one of the very, very nice things about taking on that task has been the opportunity to actually see in person some of the members who've won door prizes and come by to pick them up. I've had some nice porch visits and sidewalk visits with some people, and that's been absolutely lovely. Some door prizes have gone unclaimed, Some people haven't come by. If you are one of those people and would like to come and scoop up your door prize, it's never too late, okay? I haven't given away any door prizes that we allotted in the past meetings. So if you want to, by all means, please get in touch with me. You can contact me personally if you know how, or you can contact me through the club at chair@amateurastronomy.org. So please do, and we'll be happy to get those into your hands. And we have some more nice ones to give away tonight. The club, now that we're back up and running here in the fall, the club also has a variety of other activities. Later on this year, we'll be opening up the doors again to our beginners group. So for the new season, and everybody who's a member is welcome to participate in that. We'll see how we progress. We did it through Zoom for the first time this past year, and it worked really, really well and gave us some opportunities to do some things differently, and that was really nice. So we'll see how that goes. So that will be coming up soon. You'll be able to, we'll be getting sign up opportunities for anybody that wants to join the beginners group meetings. And those are separate from these ones, and you're more than welcome to do both. The Telescope Loaner Program is back up and running. The HAA has a Telescope Loaner Program, and a big thank you goes out to Melissa Whitman, who has tackled that project. The one and only person to operate the Telescope Loaner Program for these past many years was Jim Walmsley, and Jim deserves a big thank you from the club and its members for doing that. And he has handed the reins over to Melissa, and Melissa has got the program back up and running, and telescopes are already flying off the shelf. The Telescope Loaner Program makes a variety of telescopes available to loan to HAA members for free. And you can contact Melissa through the email loanerscope@amateurastronomy.org if you'd like to get a scope in your hands and enjoy that. So we've been back out for our first session, observing session at the club's dark sky site. And that was a huge hit, and many people enjoyed that. And I look forward to more of those to come. And you all saw the club newsletter, which also takes a hiatus during the summer. You all saw the September edition of the club newsletter arrive in your email inbox, and it was fantastic. A big thank you goes out to everybody who contributes to that. Each month we have some wonderful contributors. There's always interesting articles in there, and we have a number of regular contributors who put in something each and every month, and a big thank you goes to them. People like Joanne Salsi, people like Matthew Mannering, people like Bernie Vanask, and of course the whole package is put together by Bob Christmas. He deserves a big virtual round of applause for doing an amazing job with that. So go and check that out. It's entirely worth it. Now tonight we have a couple of videos to show to you, and I think they're very worthwhile and worth sharing. Adam, are you here with us? So Adam, please unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody.
There's Adam. Hello, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing very well, John. How are you today?
So I'm fine, thank you. Adam is a relatively new member to the HAA, and he recently shared a video with me, and I immediately asked if he'd be willing to share it with all of you, because it was I was very impressed. So I'm going to just speak for a moment here, Adam, before I throw the floor over to you. And I'm going to say that being a relatively new member, Adam joined us in our beginners group, and we had a chance to chat and talk about all things astronomy. And it is relatively new to you. You are a beginner, aren't you, Adam?
Oh yes, absolutely.
So now he says that, but but here I am asking him to share some of his work with you, because although he's a beginner, he's done an extraordinary job, and I'm very, very impressed with what he's done. Just by way of introduction, and Adam, please tell me how to pronounce your last name properly.
Just
Do
yours.
you want me to take a guess?
Yeah, sure, go for it. Oh, you may have heard it there.
Is it Kasiorski?
That's pretty good. We usually say Jastrzorski.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
soft G, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so Adam is a high school math teacher. Has a strong internet presence for his students, and you can find some of his math work on the internet. He's also a pilot. He has his private pilot license, and he plays an absolutely wicked guitar. All right, and although his guitar videos may not be appropriate for an HAA meeting, since we're going to talk about some of the astrophotography stuff, I encourage you all to absolutely look him up and see some of his amazing guitar playing. But Adam, you got into astrophotography very recently, right?
Yes, very recently. Yeah, less than a year ago.
Excellent. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this, and please share the video with us that so impressed me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Yes. Hello.
Before it's Sue McLaughlin. Just before you start, I'm going to ask everyone who still has their camera on to please turn the camera off. It will allow Adam's video to hopefully stream a little more smoothly if everybody has their video off as well. And if you're not sure how to do it, I can do it from here as well. Tom, do you want me to do it for you?
Tom was the one who disappeared when he took a phone call. He may not have made it back. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm just going to stop video at this point in time. That's okay.
Thank you.
All right. I think, Adam, that you should be good to go.
All right. Thank you very much, Sue, and thank you very much, John, for that lovely introduction. And thanks for inviting me to present this evening. I'm very excited about that. As mentioned, my name is Adam Jastrzorski, and I've been a member of the club for about a year now, and it's been awesome. Sadly, I am unable to attend a lot of the meetings because they usually fall right when we're putting the little ones to bed, which happens to be pretty much the busiest time around our household. But nevertheless, I'm looking forward to having a more active presence in the club in the future. And like I said before, it's been awesome being part of this great group so far. So very, very honored to be presenting this evening, and also really happy that this evening I can stay here for the whole meeting. I'm looking forward to seeing what else is going to be presented. So as John mentioned, I was asked to share a video that I put together recently, and I'll get to that video very soon. But first, let me give you a little bit of the backstory. I'm just going to share my screen here. Actually, maybe I'll turn my camera off and share my screen. Okay, sorry, just give me 1 second to make a couple of little adjustments here. Put the sound on. Okay. So hopefully you can see that that screen there. Now, for me, I'm very new, as John mentioned, with all of this. But for me, it all started in my backyard a few years ago. Now, for the record, what you see here is not my backyard. My backyard does not look like that. I, of course, would take those Christmas lights down during the summer. But no, in all honesty, the story goes that a few years ago, there were a string of beautiful nights in the summer, and we had company over on many of those nights. And as we were sitting out there in the beautiful weather, I was looking up at the sky and saw this this shining object. And I didn't know what it was. I really didn't know much at all about what was going on in the night sky at the time. And night after night, I kept seeing it, thinking perhaps it was a star. But as the nights went on, I started thinking, you know, maybe that's not a star. Maybe that's something else. I got the feeling for some reason that it was a planet. And I eventually, you know, kind of wanted to figure out what it was. So I got an app for my phone that told me that I was looking at Mars. And I thought that was really cool. So right away, I mean, this is at a time when I did not even realize that that you could see the planets in the night sky with the naked eye. So I called up my dad at that point because I remembered that he had won this this really cheap little telescope. Looks like that a long time ago. And we never actually even took it out of the package. But now that, you know, knowing that Mars was there, I kind of wanted to take a closer look. So I brought this little tiny telescope over and took a look at Mars. And it was neat. Of course, you couldn't really see much with this telescope. But what really got me was that using that app that I found out, you know, that Mars was up there, I found out that Saturn was also visible. And I think this is a pretty common story, but as soon as I looked at Saturn through this tiny little telescope and I could just barely make out the rings, I was hooked. And I fell in love with it, especially the planetary part of it. So lots of nights of observing planets and the moon as well. And one of the best parts is my little girl, Victoria. Here's a picture of her when she was 2, looking at the moon. She really got interested in it as well. So we did a bunch of nights out there observing planets and as best we could, and observing the moon, you know, usually with binoculars and occasionally with that little telescope. But the problem was with that little telescope, as you can imagine, if I got, say, for example, Saturn in the field of view and then said, oh, Victoria, come on over and take a look. By the time she got there and, you know, kind of got all set up to look in the telescope, or if she accidentally bumped the tripod on her way over, she couldn't see anything. It was no longer there. So that was a little bit frustrating. So years went by and we did a lot of binocular stuff. And then finally, we figured it was time to maybe upgrade the telescope. Her interest was still there. My interest was definitely still there. So that's when we picked up the Celestron Nexstar 8 SE. And that was a game changer for us. Now, you know, just the fact that it can track the sky, we don't have to worry about that planet disappearing from the field of view. We could see a lot more detail. She loved it. I loved it. It was awesome. And we had some fun nights. There was actually one back in November, a day in November, where we saw all of the other planets in our solar system on the same day. Mercury and Venus in the morning and the other ones in the evening. So that was kind of a highlight for us. And even actually got, I put a little tweet out about it because she said she wanted to tell Chris Hadfield. She'd read his children's book and said, I want to tell him that we saw them all. So I said, all right. So we put a little tweet out and we were over the moon, no pun intended, when he actually replied to that tweet. And yeah, we were on cloud 9 for weeks after that. So time went on, and one night we were out there looking at the moon through the telescope, and I took my my cell phone and snapped this picture just through the eyepiece. And right away I thought, you know, not bad for just sticking a cell phone up to the eyepiece. So I started kind of investigating what it would take to get, you know, a moderately good picture of a planet, you know, perhaps Saturn, Jupiter, any of them really. And after doing some research, came to the conclusion that the cell phone certainly wasn't really going to cut it. And even a DSLR wasn't the best choice. The way to go was to use a dedicated webcam, really a CMOS camera. So luckily for my birthday last November, I received a very generous gift, the ZWO ASI 462 MC camera. Which was awesome. And you know, a few days after my birthday, I set it all up outside and snapped some pictures. And this is what they looked like at first. And I was pretty pleased with that I could actually get something that I recognized. And as time went on over the course of you know, from last November up until a couple of weeks ago, it improved. And you know, we could really start seeing more detail. And it got to the point where I could say I was pleased with the results. I was satisfied. Obviously, there's still room for improvement here, but within 1 year of doing this, I was happy with that. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with the planetary imaging anyway. And the next steps for me are to get better at it, learn some new tricks, get some better images, and also to introduce my other little guy here, James, to the hobby. And that brings us to how this video came about. As John mentioned, I'm a math teacher, and as you may know, the province of Ontario now has a brand new grade 9 mathematics curriculum. And I kept thinking to myself, it would be awesome to be able to weave in this hobby somehow into this class. And as I searched through the curriculum, it wasn't long before I saw one of the expectations that I could definitely relate to planetary imaging. And that was this one here, where it's talking about using a large amount of data. And in particular, the value of using a large amount of data, how you might run into some issues with it, the implications and consequences, and so on. And I thought, wow, that's really what planetary imaging, at least the way that I'm currently doing it, is all about. So I made this video, and we're hoping to use it this year in our grade 9 classes, just as an example of how large amounts of data are useful. And I sent it to John, a link to the video, and said, because I was going to a few of the beginner meetings, and said, John, maybe some of the people from those meetings would find this valuable, since it kind of goes over the process of capturing an image, stacking and sharpening and so on. And that's when he said, well, why don't we present it to the whole group? And I was thrilled to hear that, and that's where we are today. So without any further delay, I think what I'll do is maybe play that video for you right now, and then afterwards, if you have questions, I'll happily answer them. So just give me 1 second here to optimize this for playing the video, and then we'll roll it. Okay, so here it is. I hope you enjoy it. It's about 8 minutes long.
Hello everyone, my name's Adam, and in this video we're going to take a look at data. Specifically, the value of using large amounts of data. Now there are tons of examples out there in which we can see the benefit of using lots of data. Like for example, when making an online purchase and deciding between two similar products with similar prices, would you choose the one that has a 5-star rating based on 17 reviews, or the one that has a 4.5-star rating based on thousands of reviews? We could also talk about many real-life examples in which having lots of data makes it easier to see patterns and trends. But in this video, we're going to look at the need for a large amount of data in a different context. And that context is taking a photo. And I'm not just talking about any old photos here. I'm talking about taking pictures of other worlds. Did you know that many of the other planets in our solar system can be seen with the naked eye? Well, it's true, and on this August night we can easily spot both Jupiter and Saturn in the sky. But how easy would it be to get a good photo of these two gas giants? Unfortunately, snapping a picture with a cell phone camera or even a DSLR equipped with a zoom lens does not deliver impressive results. To capture even the slightest bit of detail, we need a telescope. Now we could just attach a standard camera to the telescope like this, but for a variety of technical reasons, we're better off using a dedicated astrophotography camera connected to a computer. But even with a high-quality telescope and a camera specifically designed for planetary imaging, a single snapshot lacks clarity and detail and is, well, a bit disappointing. It turns out that even with good equipment, we have to battle another obstacle: the Earth's unsteady atmosphere. The continual motion of our atmosphere is actually what causes stars to appear to twinkle. When looking at planets through a telescope, this atmospheric turbulence shows up as a fuzzy or wobbly film in front of the planet, kind of like looking at the bottom of a swimming pool through its wavy surface. Needless to say, this poor seeing, as astronomers put it, makes it tough to get a crisp planetary photo from a ground-based telescope. So how do we get around the problem of poor seeing? Well, we use a clever technique called lucky imaging. To see what that's all about, let's head to the backyard and try to get some decent photos of Saturn and Jupiter. Okay, so here we are in my backyard in Hamilton, Ontario. It is August the 5th, 2021, and it's about 10 after 12. I'm going to keep my voice down because some of the neighbors are sleeping with their windows open. I have the telescope all set up and it's aligned to track the sky. The camera is connected and right now it's pointing at Saturn, as you can see. And as we can see, the seeing is not that great. You know, it's pretty blurry there, kind of wobbly, not a lot of detail, but it should be good enough to get a decent image. So here's where the large amount of data comes in. Instead of taking a single image, I'm actually going to take thousands of images. And the way I'm going to do that is to record a video at a very high frame rate, like over 100 frames per second. And the idea is that each of those frames will essentially freeze the seeing or the atmosphere at an instant. And we'll end up with a bunch of frames. Some of them will be good, they'll have clarity and they'll show detail, and a bunch of them won't be useful. But the point is we can then use software to kind of pick out the best frames and then combine them or stack them to give us a good image. So I'm going to start recording that video now. I'll do a 3-minute video for Saturn, and then we'll see what we can get. So here we go. All right, I think I got a decent capture of Saturn. Now I'm going to do the same thing for Jupiter, but I'm going to wait until it's a little bit higher in the sky. We want the planet to be as high in the sky as possible so that we're shooting through less atmosphere. So we'll come back when Jupiter is a little bit higher. Okay, as you can see, we now have the telescope pointing at Jupiter, and we can also actually see some of its moons. Here, I'll show you a little more clearly. There they are there, that's pretty cool. Okay, so this time we're only going to take a 2-minute video because if we go much longer than that, the surface details are going to start to get blurred because of the rotation of the planet. So we'll do a 2-minute video, and you know, one of the hardest things here is trying to keep the planet in frame when we're recording that video. So what I'm using is actually a wireless game controller to control the telescope, which is pretty handy. So here we go, 2-minute video of Jupiter. Let's see what we can get. All done. Let's head inside and see what we have. All right, so I've loaded our Saturn video into the stacking software here, which is called AutoStackerd. And what it's done is analyzed all of the frames, all 18,148 frames, and ordered them from best quality to worst quality. And we can actually kind of scroll through them and see, we start with the higher quality frames and work our way down to the low quality frames. And it's also created this handy graph here which shows us what it thinks we have in terms of quality for our frames. So over here we have the higher quality frames, the higher part of this green curve represents those, and where we start to get lower here on this green curve, that represents our lower quality frames. So what I need to do is I need to pick the number of frames or the percentage of frames that we'll use for our stacked image. Now, I'd like to use as many frames as possible, but I don't want them to be bad quality frames. I don't typically like to choose frames that are below this this 50% middle line here, but unfortunately I don't have a lot of frames that are above that line, so I think I am going to dip down below that line a little bit and maybe choose we'll choose 25% of our frames for this stack. So I'm going to just tell the software to stack 25% of the frames, and let's see what we get. And here's the quality graph for our Jupiter video, a little bit better than the Saturn one. And we have 15,437 frames here. And once again, I think we'll take the best 25%. I usually like to take a little bit more than that, but we'll just work with what we have here. So 25% of 15,437 frames. That's about 3,860 frames. Let's do it. Okay, the stacking is done. Here's what our two stacked images look like, and already you can notice a pretty significant improvement. But the real magic happens when I then use a program called Registax to sharpen the images. Check this out. I've loaded our stacked Saturn image into Registax. Now take a look what happens when I start sharpening different layers of the image. Wow, that's pretty good. Now let's do the same thing for our Jupiter image. So there you have it. We were actually able to get some pretty good pictures of Saturn and Jupiter, but we would not have been able to do that without first collecting loads of data in the form of thousands of image frames. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care and see you next time.
All right, so hopefully that streamed smoothly over Zoom. If it didn't, I've just put the link for the YouTube video, that YouTube video, in the chat, so you can watch it that way. So yeah, tons of fun making that video, and obviously tons of fun with this hobby in general. Looking forward to learning a lot more, talking to people in this fantastic club. If there are any questions that you have for me about the video or anything else, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Well, Adam, that's fantastic. Of course, as you know and others know, not the first time I've seen that video, and that's just wonderful. So I actually am going to fire a couple of questions at you before we get stampeded by other people. First, I've got to say that very first little mini telescope, right? You know, that you tried to observe Mars with. You can tell it's a fine instrument. You know why? It's the compass on top that does it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the best feature right there. So absolutely. So the two, in this example that you provided in the video here, you did a capture of Jupiter, you did a capture of Saturn. Saturn was, at the time, was the one that was higher in the sky, but you actually got a better, a higher keeper rate on the Jupiter one, right? On the Jupiter video. So why do you think that was? Why did you end up with more usable frames in the Jupiter one than the Saturn one?
Well, I don't know. A couple guesses, and perhaps you could maybe correct me if I'm wrong about this. One was, I guess, the seeing, even in a short amount of time, that seeing can change enough to really affect the quality of the image. Now, I don't know how Auto Stackert really comes up with that quality graph. That's a bit of a mystery to me. Same with like how the Registax wavelets work, those sliders. I looked online, a lot of people don't really know what's going on there. But one of my guesses would perhaps be the seeing, and the other one may perhaps focus. Maybe my focus was just better with the one planet compared to the other. I don't know. Maybe there are certain other things that the stacking software is looking for to come up with that. Like, do you know, John, how it goes about finding that quality?
No, I truly don't. I'm actually, in asking that question, I wasn't just trying to feed you an opportunity to explain something else. I really wanted to know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Now there is, and I've been intending to watch this, a fairly recent 2-hour-long interview with the gentleman that developed that software, Emil, and I can't remember his last name. It's Krakenkamp or something like that. Perhaps he'll reveal those details in that video. I just haven't found the 2 hours to sit down and watch it. So if I do find out, I will certainly let you know right away.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned that you kept the Jupiter video relatively short because if you too long a video, you end up with blurring because of Jupiter's high rotation rate. And that's worth mentioning to everybody, that Jupiter does rotate on its axis in under 10 hours. And it doesn't take very long at the telescope eyepiece or with the camera before that rotation is noticeable. And so it showed up there with you and having to keep the video short. It's very noticeable, excuse me, at the eyepiece during an observing session. And since it's really good Jupiter season right now, this is something people can look for, you know, if they're out with the scope, having a look at Jupiter's surface features. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That was excellent.
Also worth mentioning, John, that there is software to take care of the rotation. WinJupos, I believe it's called. I've never used it, but yeah, apparently it's derotation software to kind of help battle that.
That's correct, and I know that that's a very popular piece of software. And I'm no planetary imager, so I can't speak from experience here. But that's a very popular piece of software that works well. And what you bring up here is really interesting because it shows how many different factors are involved, how many different things have to be thought of. It's not just taking a snapshot. There's things like the planet's position in the sky, the seeing conditions, the atmospheric conditions at the time, right? You've selected, you know, special equipment, the proper camera, that kind of thing. You're using multiple pieces of software, and there are others available to tackle even other issues like the rotation of Jupiter and that. It's planetary imaging. When I want everybody to understand, when they see something like these beautiful images of Saturn and Jupiter that Adam showed us tonight, how much goes into it. It's an impressive feat and much harder than it looks. And that's very much why I wanted Adam to share this with you tonight, his great success. That's terrific. And I'll mention too that that Adam was a great part of the beginners group this past year, along with many other really wonderful members. And this is the kind of stuff that we talk about, right? We talk about how to deal with seeing and how to select appropriate equipment and that kind of thing. So that's great. Adam, thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. Sue, do we have anybody out there with questions?
Yes, we do. The family Whitman would like to know, Adam, what was the name of the first app that you were using outside? So the first app that you mentioned, what was the name of it?
Yeah, so I believe that is that question is referring to the software that was used to capture the image, the one with like the kind of the red background. That's Fire Capture, and there are several other options out there, but like Sharp Cap is one, and there's one that came with the camera called ASI Cap or ASI Cap. There's lots, but that's the one I find I like. I don't know, seems to work best for me. It's also one that there's a ton of support for online in forums and so on. And it has a really nice feature that I find useful called auto align. So the planet kind of moves and jumps around a fair bit, you know, when you're capturing it. But when you have auto align, it automatically centers that planet for you for the entire capture, which is also kind of really nice for when you're, you know, trying to focus and things like that. It's a handy feature. So yeah, Fire Capture.
And that's the only question I have. Can you just pop that into the chat just
Oh,
in
yeah.
case
Yep.
someone wants to refer to it and they don't remember after the next segment? That's okay. That's all the questions that I have, John.
So, all right. Although I do see in the chat that there's actually some very nice compliments there. So Adam, so you got the ASI 462. Was it the MC?
Yep, color camera.
So yeah, and are you happy with it?
I am. Yeah, especially as of lately. I mean, when I took the first images with it, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I still have a lot to learn. I thought, you know, that's pretty cool. It's certainly doing more than I could do with my cell phone, or perhaps a DSLR. Although I got to say, John, that the ones that you took with your DSLR are fantastic. So yeah, I am happy with it. It's a color camera, which I guess compared to using a monochrome camera and filters is not going to give, you know, as high quality images. But for me, I think it's at least a good first step because it takes care of the, you know, I don't have to go in and take several different videos and then combine them using different filters and so on. But yeah, I've really been happy with it, especially lately. It's very user friendly. I've never had any issues setting it up or anything like that. No complaints. It's always worked great for me, and I've always I've always been pleased with the results.
Adam, we do have another question that just showed up.
Okay.
This is from Peter Woolsey. Can you please tell us what the focal length is of your setup, and also how do you focus?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So the what it would be, I guess, what was I using for the one there? Was it a 2x Barlow f10? So, okay, so that's f20, I believe. The telescope itself is like 2000 millimeter focal length, and yeah, so it's telescope to Barlow. I'm using the atmospheric dispersion corrector as well, which I don't think is going to affect focal length or anything like that, and to the camera. And as for focusing, I ended up picking up the Celestron motor focuser, which has been awesome for me. I can actually control it using that game controller, and it's so nice for really two big reasons. One is well, I guess three reasons. One, I can control it wirelessly. So I don't have to touch the focuser, and as a result, I don't get a lot of shaking with the telescope when I touch the focuser. Two, I can be sitting down at the computer and do it wirelessly, so I don't have to actually be kind of reaching over to the telescope while looking at my screen. And three, it allows me to do really fine adjustments on the focus. And for those of you that are kind of new to this, as I am, perhaps you've experienced that focusing is one of the toughest parts of this, and I'm still doing everything by eye. I'm not using the Batnov mask, with a star or any other type. Like I think SharpCap, that capture software, has some type of a focus assist in it. I've never tried it. I'm just kind of doing it by eye. Occasionally, the cool thing with the motor focuser, on the screen, it will tell you the position of the focuser. So I can look at a number that represents the current position of that focuser, and I can take a capture. I can then make subtle adjustments to the focuser and take more captures, and then look at them later and find out which one was the best. Because sometimes viewing it on the screen by eye, it's the most minute little movement might make a difference in the final image, but on the screen, when you're capturing, you can't really see that. So so yeah, that's what I've done lately.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you indeed, Adam. So just from everybody, I'm seeing all these compliments in the chat, and they're well deserved. I can't thank you enough. So it's been a pleasure to have you join the club, and a pleasure to have you join us here tonight. And thanks so much for taking the time to share all that with us.
Well, it's my pleasure, John. And once again, thanks so much for inviting me. Thanks everybody for watching the presentation. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. And I do see in the chat there was one other question regarding adding a link to the video, I think, to the website. Absolutely, I'm okay with that for sure. Please use it any way that you like.
That's great. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks again.
So we have another video to share with you tonight, and for this one, I'm going to call on the family Whitman. So hello, Whitmans.
Hey, here we are.
There they are. Fantastic. So there's
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Hope it
Thank
played
you.
okay.
Yeah, that came across great.
Beautiful. I hope, yeah, because it was halfway through and I thought, oh, I hope I put the sound on, but I didn't hear from anybody, so I'm assuming it worked.
It worked just fine. It came across great,
Yeah.
and a big thank you to you for doing a fantastic job putting that together. That's no small amount of work, and to everybody who was able to contribute to that. It was so great to see so many people, so many members getting out to see the eclipse. And of course, there were many more who didn't take photographs, who just observed it. And I was down at the beach to see the sunrise there, and quite coincidentally ran into some other HAA members there, and it was great. What a wonderful experience. So thank you to all for contributing to that. Thank you for Melissa for putting that together. And I think my absolute favorite photo is the one of Jason and Claire.
I have to say, I like that one too. And we talked about this the other night at the council meeting, just because it just, to me, it just captures the joy of this club, right? They're new members and they just look like they're having the time of their life. And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. They had their solar glasses on, and that's exactly why we did that, why we made those glasses and handed them out to everybody. It was great to see that they were well used and enjoyed. That's terrific. So thank you so much. Very much appreciate what you did for us there. So
Excellent.
what a great way to share everyone's experiences.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So folks, it is 20 after 8. And we're going to take a very brief break, but we're far from done, because when we come back, we have door prizes to give away, and we have the sky this month from Matthew Mannering. So we're going to take 10 minutes right now, or you know what? Let's come back at 8:30. Let's take 8 minutes. That's more than enough time to do everything you need to do. You can chat amongst yourselves. Go get yourselves that coffee. And we'll be back in a few minutes to have door prizes in the sky this month. Thanks, everyone. So are we ready to get going again? I've
Yay.
got door prizes to give away, so let's get going.
Yes, we are. Sorry, I was muted. Sorry. So
No,
I'm
that's
gonna mute. So if we could all mute again, and door prizes are on their way.
Door prizes are on their way. So, and of course, we'll be joined here by Maya Whitman, who makes sure that the door prizes get distributed randomly and everything goes off to a happy home. So we have 4 door prizes here tonight, 3 books and a planisphere. The first book, a couple of the books are donations, and from Matthew Mannering, and a big thank you goes out to Matthew for that. Here we have the new astronomy guide, Stargazing in the Digital Age. All right. So by Patrick Moore, famous, of course, Pete Lawrence, and a forward by Brian May right there. It says, forward by Brian May, CBE, PhD, FRAS, right? Commander of the British Empire, PhD, FRAS, Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society. What it doesn't tell you, of course, is also guitarist for the rock band Queen. Same guy. So we have an amazing National Geographic book called Orbit. So just absolutely spectacular imagery in here. Views of the Earth from space. I can't say enough good things. It's just absolutely spectacular. We have a planisphere, which is a wonderful observing aid, giving you all sky views. You can dial in date and time to give you the sky wherever you, for any night at any time. It'll show you what constellations are up there. This is a lovely one. It's large, it's easy to read. I can't say enough good things about these. These are just wonderful. And of course, one of the best amateur astronomy books ever put out, The Backyard Astronomer's Guide by Terry Dickinson and Alan Dyer. This is the 3rd edition. This is the most recent one for now. There's a 4th edition going to come out soon. And like I say, one of the best amateur astronomy books to get you going. So here we go. That's what we have up for grabs tonight. Maya, are you ready to find a good home for all of these prizes?
Yes, I am. All right.
All right. So who do we have up first?
So first we have Denise and Chris.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Denise and Chris. So that's great.
All right. And next we have Mike Hamilton.
We won
Whoa, what did we win?
one of the book things.
Cool.
I want Terrence Dickinson or the Patrick Moore one.
Well, then we'll tell John and I'll zip down tomorrow and get it. Because isn't it usually first come, first serve?
Yeah.
When we were at the top of the list?
Denise and
So,
Chris, you're unmuted.
Oh.
We're fighting over the book we're planning to get.
But we're all enjoying listening. We're all enjoying it. So congratulations, Denise and Chris. Congratulations to Mike Hamilton. Mike, you here with us?
Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Well
It's amazing.
done. So well done. Who's up
Thanks.
next, Maya?
Gary MCS.
So Gary, are you here with us tonight? You still with us?
On.
Yep, he should be here.
Yeah.
He's here. I see him.
So good. Well, excellent. Well, good. Well, congratulations to Gary. So
And then next we have Andrew Brenyo.
oh, wonderful. So
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's everybody.
Yeah.
that's wonderful. So Andrew, congratulations to you. Denise and Chris, Mike, Gary, Andrew, well done. Here's how it works. All of you get in touch with me, okay? Many of you have my personal email, or you can contact me through the club email, chair@amateurastronomy.org. Door prizes will be available for pickup here at my house. and get in touch, and I'll review what books we had here, what prizes we had, and you can let me know what your preferences are. Yes, it works on a first come, first serve basis here. Absolutely. So, but they're all good, so you can't lose. So thank you, Maya. Fabulous job as always. Very much appreciated. So
No problem.
okay. And now I'm very happy to turn the floor over to Matthew Mainwaring, who always brings us to a wonderful, wonderful conclusion each month with his excellent editions of The Sky this month. Matthew made a special trip. Matthews and Janice have been camping, and he made a special trip back to civilization to be with us here tonight. Thank you, Matthew. We very much appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I hand the floor over to you.
All righty. Okay. All right, Sue, can you hear me and see my screen?
I can hear you and see your screen. Do you have any video tonight, Matt?
Just the little ones like this that you see in the presentation.
Okay.
Like GIFs more than
All right.
anything. Okay. So welcome to the Sky this month for September 2021. I'm going to talk tonight a little bit about observing the sun, then the planets, and some images, quick images I took while we were camping last night and the night before. So last year I bought myself a solar telescope, a hydrogen alpha telescope, and it's been a real eye-opener, quite literally, as to looking at the sun and seeing it in a very different way. Because of that, I've been doing a lot more research on the sun and being a lot more aware of any articles I see on things like space weather. And one of the terms I've seen a few times in the last few months is something called a solar tsunami, which got me looking because I wondered what the heck that was. So here you have around the middle of the screen there, you can see a flare erupting from a sunspot. And if you look carefully, you can actually see a wave run right across the face of the sun from there down. And that is the tsunami. Just as an aside, that's called a coronal hole. It has nothing to do with the tsunami. It's just an area that's slightly cooler than the rest of the coronosphere. And what happens is that the magnetic field in there is really stable, and it produces a really high speed stream of particles that come out of there, which is one of the reasons that solar astronomers like to keep an eye on things like coronal holes and this type of eruption here. So the only way you can see the coronal hole is in X-ray or ultraviolet. So that's just something for the scientists, not generally for us amateurs. So this is the same tsunami which produced the expulsion of all this material from the face of the sun, a coronal mass ejection, and you can actually see it coming out as a puff from the coronosphere here. So this thing in the middle here, that occults the sun, otherwise you wouldn't see the coronosphere, all this nice sort of light coming off from the sides, and you would not see the blast of plasma going out into space. So that's kind of neat. So solar tsunami, it's this expanding wave of hot plasma and magnetism. They calculated that this one was moving at about 110,000 miles an hour. And they figured that out by seeing how long it took to get to the next sunspot group on the surface of the sun there. Just timed it. If you get a tsunami, you're going to get a coronal mass ejection, which means we're going to get a wave of plasma if it's pointed at us. And the blue screen there that showed that the plasma moving away from the sun, that's from the SOHO telescopes that are permanently looking at the sun, the solar heliospheric observatories. They've been there for a long time. They do a great job of keeping an eye on the sun for us. So if you want to see what's going on right now on the sun, all you have to do, if for those of us who are old enough to remember, is just look for the Gong Show on the internet. And the Gong network is a hydrogen alpha network of 6 scopes scattered around the Earth. They're all run by scientific foundations, and they're used to maintain almost constant view of the sun, about 90 to 95% of the day in 24 hours. There's an observatory somewhere that can see the sun and see what's going on right now. And that's what the page looks like to get there. And then you can pick any of these 6 sites and go to it. And you can either look at the single image by clicking on the solar image itself. And if you go below, you can actually see a movie. So here's the page where I chose to see the movie. And what it does is it will upload 70, 80, 90 images, depending on what observatory it's from. All the most recent ones. It'll cover hours of time. And if you hit play, you can actually watch everything that's happening on the surface of the sun and also on the edge as well, with all of the filaments coming off the edge. And if it's going too fast for you, you can do it slower, or you can go faster if you want. Interestingly, what's interesting is that this detail that you see on here is what I see with my 60 millimeter solar telescope in H alpha. So it's actually a good match because I can directly compare what I observe to what they're seeing around the world on these actual telescopes. And GONG actually stands for Global Oscillation Network Group. And the oscillation they're referring to is seismology in the sun. So they're actually measuring disruptions in the sun to try and figure out its internal makeup and to figure out what's going on. Sunspots are coming right back into vogue. As you know, the latest cycle is starting to heat up, and we're starting to get great big groups of sunspots. We had 6 at one point last week. There's 4 as of yesterday. And this group over here, 2866, has been really active. And here you can see, whoops, sorry, I don't know what happened there. What happened there, Janice? I don't know either. Hold on a second. Technical difficulty of some sort. My difficulty. Anyway, what you can see there is that in 24 hours, that group, sunspot group, grew by about 100%. So sunspots aren't static. They change in size, they change in complexity. The magnetic fields get all messed up, and you can see all kinds of disruptions. And of course, you do have eruptions from it. And on the right, same sunspot group, and you can actually see a little video of some of the plasma moving along the lines of magnetic flux. It's really very interesting. Moving on to Venus, I did mention in the newsletter that that it's a good time to observe Venus. Venus is going to be in the sky till at least the new year. And so this is a very, very long observing period for Venus. Right now, it is still quite far away, but it's already very bright. And I chose this particular composite because I think it really, really shows just how things look through the telescope over a period of time. So this fella, he came up over a period of 500 days. He took images through his telescope, he combined them into this composite and threw in a picture of the hydrogen alpha sun there, and did a really nice job. So if you start here, you can see that Venus has come out from behind the sun. So it's just past superior conjunction. And you can already see that you don't see the whole disk, because as soon as Venus moves away from the sun, part of it will appear in shadow. So Venus and Mercury both have phases just like the moon. And as Venus comes around in its orbit, it's getting a lot closer to us, and it will appear to get bigger and bigger. So by the time it gets to here, where it's just a thin crescent, it's approaching 1 arc minute, which is a pretty good size for any of the planets for you to observe. And then when it comes to inferior conjunction in front of us, you don't see it. It comes around the other side in its orbit. And of course, the phases reverse as it heads around to disappear behind the sun again. Now, one thing you need to know is as the crescent gets thinner and thinner, that means it's getting closer and closer to the sun in the sky, even just visually. Once it gets within about 10 degrees of the sun, you have to be very careful. Make sure that you don't ever make a mistake and point your scope at the sun. If you're going to observe Venus, make sure you know what you're doing, or use something like a wall to block the sun so that all you can see is Venus with your telescope. Just make sure that you don't look at the sun by mistake. Moving on to Jupiter, I also talked about Jupiter in the newsletter, and I really like this image. I found it, I think, on Space Weather, and this fella obviously is in the right place to do spectacular images, and he's caught Jupiter there right through the hole in the rock. He's got the summer Milky Way and the dark horse there in the Milky Way, and he's obviously lit up the rocks probably with a flash. It's just a beautiful picture, and I thought you might like to see that one. So when I talked about Jupiter in the newsletter, I talked about all the different types of events that can happen with the moons of Jupiter and how they interact with Jupiter. And what I tried to get across was that if you're just beginning, the easiest thing to actually observe for most people, and actually the most interesting, because it's quite stunning to see, is a shadow of one of the moons transiting the face of Jupiter. The other thing I mentioned at the time was that most of the time, or at least for part of the time during that transit, the moon itself will be in front of Jupiter, but don't be surprised if you don't see it. I've only seen it a couple of times, because what happens is the moons move along the belts, and the moons just don't have enough contrast between them and the colors on Jupiter for them to be very visible. So you can see here, there's Io right there. They've actually even just sort of put the target on it for you. And that translates into right here. And you can't tell me that you can see a moon there very easily at all. It's right in there. But it's going to be even harder in your telescope. So if you see the shadows, be very happy, enjoy them. I know I always do. And let's see what else there is. Another type of event that can happen is that you'll watch one of the moons disappear behind Jupiter as the moon goes through its orbit. So the moon is occulted or covered by Jupiter. And if you wait long enough, the moon will pop out from the other side. This would be anywhere from hours to 2 days. So here we are a few hours later, and just by chance, you're going to see another type of event. And that is where the moon is eclipsed by the shadow of Jupiter. So there's where Io should be, but it's actually in the shadow of Jupiter. Now, depending on the Sun, Earth, Jupiter angles, you'll either see it there or the shadow will be in the correct spot that it'll make the moon disappear for a while. So it's still there. You just can't see it. It's the equivalent if you were standing on Jupiter, which of course is impossible, but if you were, let's pretend, it'd be the same as a lunar eclipse here. Instead, we have the Earth's shadow covering the moon. In this case, it's Jupiter's shadow covering Io. A few minutes later on, it turns out Europa was in the shadow as well. And in fact, it's not quite all the way out of the shadow. You can see that Europa is cut off, and that is the edge of the shadow of Jupiter covering part of the moon. And poor old Io is still in the dark. Move on a few minutes. Io all of a sudden just pops out from the shadow, and now I can see both of these moons. This is really interesting to see, and I've seen it quite a few times. And it really doesn't get boring, but if you are not expecting it, you might be a bit confused when you're software says that you're supposed to be able to see Io or Europa or whatever, and you can't, and it's because it's in the shadow. Now, an actual observation that occurred for me back on August 15th, 16th was purely by chance. I had my 6-inch reflector outside on an Altaz mount, just taking a quick look at things. And I looked at Jupiter, and this is what I saw. I saw the one moon on one side and 3 moons grouped very closely together. And in fact, these 2 moons appeared to be touching like a snowman or type effect. And so I ran inside and I got my Sky Safari program running and had a look at things. And sure enough, I found out that a couple of hours later, they'd be even tighter. Now, turns out the 3 moons that were involved were Europa over on the left and Callisto and Ganymede. And if you can actually see here, they're not actually eclipsing one over the other or occulting. What's happening is that because I'm at a certain magnification, it can only get so much resolution, and so it appears as if one is occulting the other. But close enough for me, that's for sure. I really enjoyed this. And later on, at about 1 in the morning, I went back outside, and the 2 moons here were almost appeared as one. So if they were not actually occulting one over the other, it was so close as to make absolutely no difference in my telescope. And it was really interesting to see this oblong shape. Actually, you could see that even with a 6-inch telescope as one passed in front of the other during their orbits. Now, if somebody on the web here has been kind enough to post this on cloudy nights, and here's the 2 types of events. One is Ganymede occulting Europa. That's the one on the left. So Ganymede is in front of Europa, and Europa disappears behind Ganymede. And on the right side, you have the shadow of Ganymede eclipsing Europa. Not completely in this case, but if you watch, you can actually see the shadow biting into Europa as they move around in their orbit. So that's another couple of types of events that you can see through your telescope. Now, seeing an eclipse with an amateur telescope, pretty darn difficult. I'm lucky if I can ever even see them more as dots of lights, the moons. I've only seen them as disks a few times, and I don't know if it's my observing skill or air turbulence, or I just don't have a big enough telescope. I don't know, but for me, it's very difficult to actually see them as tiny disks. But if you can, good luck to you. So move on to Saturn. Saturn, of course, is awesome right now. It's just past opposition, meaning its closest point to us in its orbit. And that happens every year. We come around the sun and we meet up with Saturn again. And at the point where we are directly between Saturn and the sun, that's called opposition. Now, right now, we are seeing Saturn with the northern hemisphere pointed towards us. The tilt of the axis of Saturn is 26.5 degrees, just like the Earth's axis is a tilt of 23.5 degrees. So it's pretty similar. So Saturn has seasons as well, but they're spread over 30 Earth years, not one. And of course, it's a lot colder out there and there's no real ground. So it's an entirely different system, physical system, but the effect is the same. You do get seasons. And what you can see here is in this image is that this part of the southern hemisphere looks more blue. And I would ask that you go outside and see if you can see that yourself. When you have a look at Saturn, see if you can see if the southern hemisphere is blue. Once the rings are past edge on and it's the seasons change, and now we're seeing the southern hemisphere of Saturn, then that blue tint will go away as the atmosphere warms up and produces the warmer colors like the yellow. Now, because I was looking at it, it got me to wondering about when the rings were again due to be edge on. I hadn't looked that up in a long time. So every 15 years or so, which is twice over a 30-year period, which is one orbit, Saturn's rings appear to us as being edge on. And at that point, they basically disappear. When Galileo started looking at Saturn in 1610, 11, he saw that it had ears. So the top image there is roughly what he saw. Now he knew it wasn't really ears. It's actually, he thought it was three bodies in space, almost touching, and the two outer lobes he called ears. And then 1612 comes along, and all of a sudden, they're gone. And he was quite stumped by this. It's like, what the heck is going on? And then he says in his notes, oh, well, I think they'll come back at some point, so I just will ignore Saturn for now. Well, it turned out it wasn't probably the right decision to make, because when the rings are edge on, you can see some of the moonlets that are right on the ring plane itself. Years later, when the rings opened up again, he was able to sketch these very basic sketches. Remember, his telescope was worse than a Costco or Walmart telescope ever could be, so they're not bad. But then he thought that those were handles, so he called them handles instead of ears. So in 1612, on June 20th, which by the way happens to be my birthday, Galileo would have looked out and seen Saturn and the moon there together, very pretty. And if he would have had a much bigger telescope and better eyesight, better eyepieces, everything better, he would have seen this with some of the moonlets and moons spread across the ring plane, which is edge on and almost completely invisible from Earth. So that got me to wondering, okay, so on my birthday in 1612, which means I'm either really old or just, aged well, I wonder what the ring plane looked like then. So I looked it up. And my actual birthday, June 20th, 58. So here's what it looked like. Almost completely as big and as awesome as it can possibly look, with the maximum tilt. And just, I don't know what it made me think of, but it made me think of Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, the old Star Trek Next Generation episode, kind of one of the my favorite ones. And I'm paraphrasing a quote from there, which was, in my case, when Matthew saw first light at Branton, his ears wide open. All of you who are Trekkies will get that. The rest of you won't have a clue what I'm talking about, but that's okay. Half the people are laughing their pants off, and half the people are going, that's not funny. Doesn't matter. Anyways. So as I mentioned, opposition is when we are directly between Saturn and the sun, which means Saturn's as close to us as it gets every year. And here's a complete, basically 30-year cycle showing Saturn and the tilt of the rings every year through that time. Back in 2001, they were wide open and we were seeing the southern hemisphere. And if you go across these rows here, you'll see that by about 2009, they were edge on. And then 2010, we start seeing the northern hemisphere tilted towards us, which is what we have now. And we go through a whole bunch of years. And in 2025, they will be edge on again. And then we'll be back to seeing the northern hemisphere. Anyway, the southern hemisphere. Sorry, I know I said that wrong. Anyways, the really lousy thing is that we will not be able to see Saturn when the rings are dead edge on, because it will be in conjunction with the sun. So it'll be right in line with the sun. And we will probably be able to see it when it looks like about like this, and about when it looks like this. But when it looks like this, it's going to be right behind the sun. So that's a bummer. But we'll see what we can when it comes around. So Janice and I have been at Bacchus camping, and the last 2 nights we were able to get some photography in and a bit of observing. 2 nights ago, we were all set up. We took some images, and at about 10:30, 11 o'clock, lightning started to appear very close to us and thunder. And I looked on the weather app and went, oh my, I think we need to pack up, because there was a rain coming and it was coming really fast. So 2 complete astrophotography setups in the truck, packed away in about 25 minutes. I don't think you can do it any faster than that without breaking stuff. But earlier, after we had set up and the mosquitoes were busy eating us to pieces, there were clouds of them. I can't believe this in September, but there were clouds of them. I did happen to look up once the setup was done and saw the moon and Venus just above the tree line. So this is just a cell phone snap that I took. And here's another one where I zoomed in a bit with the phone, and you can see Venus quite clearly there. It was very pretty. And that got me to thinking, hey, my scope is set up. So I turned my 5-inch refractor manually to the moon and got it centered. And just as the moon was going behind the tree line, I managed to snap a few pictures of this crescent moon. It was actually very pretty, and it was a nice moment, even though we were being eaten by the local insects. So over the period of a couple of nights, I ended up taking some deep sky stuff. I took multiple frames of 3 different targets. This is just one frame. In fact, each of these is just one frame that I've just pulled out at random to show. And all I've done is process it a little bit on my computer today so you can see it. This is M92. I've talked about M92 in June, and I've talked about M92 in the latest Event Horizon. And the reason I keep talking about it lately is because I hadn't looked at it in years, and it turns out it's a beauty. So if you haven't looked at it, make sure you look at it. These streamers of stars are very pretty. It's got a very tight core, but then it spreads out very nicely. It's about 12 arc minutes across compared to about 18 or so, or 20 for the Great Globular in Hercules, M13. So how do you get there? Well, I thought it was really hard years ago. I had trouble finding it, but now it was not nearly as bad. So here's the keystone of Hercules, or the Dixie Cup, as I like to call it. Go to the top left star. You'll see an elbow of quite bright stars very close. Go to the outer star, the elbow, and then not quite at 90 degrees. If you go at 90 degrees, that line, you end up going out that way into deep space. So just about 80 degrees, just sort of cut away from vertical from that line. This star is really obvious, about 5 degrees away, and then just follow the line. And in your finder, you're going to find M92 as a nice fuzzy ball sitting in your finder. Center it, you're good. And it's well worth the time. And if you've never looked at M13, well, it's right there. It's awesome. And if you're really in the mood for globulars, there's another one sitting over here, smaller, further away, but still discernible in your scope. This is the helix. It's very difficult. It's low in the sky. It never gets very high. And this is, again, is one subframe. I took many, many subframes, which I'll stack and I'll get a much cleaner image, hopefully. But I processed this just enough to give you an idea of what it looked like. And this, of course, is very noisy and everything, but it's a very difficult target. So if you get anything at all, sometimes it feels like a win. And this was just craziness. My tracking last night was absolutely some of the best I've ever had. I don't use a guide scope, so no computerized guiding, nothing like that. My wife and I, we set up the mounts using PoleMaster, which gets us to within a very, very small error in terms of being directly polar aligned. And last night I must have been dead on, because when I started taking images of the iris, which is what this is, the Iris Nebula, Cepheus area, I couldn't believe it. I was shooting 2 minutes, 40 seconds, and with a 900 millimeter telescope, unguided. This is not supposed to be able to be done. In fact, everybody would tell you it can't work. Well, I was getting frame after frame that was really nice. So I said to Janice, you know what? It's 1:30. I'm getting tired and cold, but I'm going to try 4 minutes. So I did a 4-minute frame, and the stars were sharp. I said to Janice, one more. I'm going to do 6 minutes just to see what happens, because there's no way I should be able to get ground stars at 6 minutes with a 900mm focal length telescope, unguided. Anyways, as you can see, I did. So I just processed it a bit so that you could see what it looks like. Obviously, there's a lot of noise and the red in there that needs to come out. But when I stack everything, hopefully I'm going to end up with a nice image. What's really cool to me, though, is this little hole in the nebulosity where you can see the stars in the background. I think that's really cool. And of course, the dark lanes that are coming off of the nebula as well. So it was fun, and we're both exhausted. And that's the end. I hope everybody has a good September and gets in some great viewing. This is the time when you can see the summer sky and the fall sky. And if you're really crazy, you can see the winter sky as well. So good luck and good hunting for targets. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Matthew. That's fantastic. So I'm first of all, I'm stunned. 6 minutes unguided at 900mm. That's unheard of. Wow. And what beautiful results just for single images. Those are absolutely spectacular. So very impressive. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. Everyone, you can see why we keep Matthew till the end, right? So he closes things off in spectacular fashion every time, right? So thank you so much. I think that about wraps it up for us tonight. It's after 9. I hope everybody found this to be an evening well spent. Next month, we have a wonderful guest speaker that was arranged for us by one of our amazing members. Swapna Shrivastava has arranged for us to have Laurie Rousseau-Neptune, who's a scientist at the Canada-France-Hawaii Telescope and Mauna Kea in Hawaii, who's involved in an exciting project about how stars form. And she'll be speaking to us about that. I'm very much looking forward to that. That is absolutely not to be missed. That will be next month in October. Thank you to everybody who pitched in tonight. Matthew Mannering, who we just heard from, Melissa Whitman, and Adam Jastroski, who provided, all of whom provided wonderful programming for tonight. Sue McLaughlin and Chris Stretch, who are the behind the scenes masters who make all of this work come together and work so wonderfully. Could not do this without you. Thank you so much. Door prize winners, Denise and Chris, Mike, Gary, Andrew. Don't forget to get in touch with me so we can make arrangements for you to get your door prizes. And thank you to all of you for coming out tonight and seeing us, right? It was a pleasure to see all of you. Hope you had a good evening and look forward to seeing you again. So that's it for the HAA tonight. Thanks to everyone. Everybody take care and we'll see you next month. So.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, Jim.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Matthew. Good night, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.